Chapter 4. He was cold, his eyes hostile, the touch of his hand a mere formality. As Koenig led him towards his office, he said, "I am most disturbed, John. The metaprobe is overdue, and your demand for classified information was highly irregular. I need to know the contents of the waste cans. Even so, you should have cleared it with me first. Should the news leak out, there could be serious repercussions. Coupled with the delay in launching the metaprobe, it places me in an awkward situation. In fact, I've had to rescind the halt on waste disposal. Normal operations will recommence in 3 days. No." Simmons' lips tightened, but he said nothing, waiting until Koenig had closed the doors of his office, cutting out the curious eyes and flapping ears. Quickly, Koenig said, "We can't take any more waste, Commissioner, not in the disposal area at least. If you want to dump it elsewhere, that's up to you." "I can't agree to that. The committee can go to hell. They aren't in charge up here. I am." For now, thought Simmons, but not for much longer. Yet, with the diplomacy won over years of political haggling, he kept the thought to himself. Time enough to use the axe when he had achieved as much as he could. The blame for any mistakes made now would be shifted to Koenig then. And perhaps something could still be saved. "The probe, John. You promised me that you would get it launched. We made a deal, which you've broken. I had no choice, and neither had I." Koenig felt relief that he now had no cause to send men to their deaths. Despite Carter's willingness to take a chance, the odds were against him. "We've had other things to worry about. Or haven't you heard what happened to Area 1? "The explosion?" Simmons shrugged. "An accident, John. A freak occurrence. Unfortunate, but I'm sure that it's an isolated incident. My technicians assure me that it is impossible for an area to detonate. The waste cannot reach critical mass." The man was a fool and a dangerous one. Koenig snapped into his comlock. "Operator, have Professor Bergman and Dr. Russell report to me immediately." To Simmons he said, "I've asked them both because they are equally involved. The position here is damned serious. Victor will tell you." Bergman had brought a bundle of papers with him, graphs and charts, a list of equations which he dropped on the desk. "The proof, if you need it, Commissioner, but I can tell you what they say. Area 2 is stacked with much the same waste material as was Area 1, but with one important difference. 5 years ago, you sent up a far larger proportion of cesium and lithium in relation to the normal uranium-contained waste. There is also a high proportion of transuranic elements, some of which went into Area 1, but most of which has been dumped in Area 2. So, to put it briefly, there is a catalytic reaction. I've had very little time to make an investigation, and none at all to conduct experiments. But it is my opinion that this particular blend of waste affects the surrounding lunite in such a way that a magnetic field of incredible density is formed. This field, coupled with the induced reaction of the lunite, creates a feedback cycle, which inevitably results in fusion." "Fission? Fusion, Commissioner?" Bergman was grim. "There is probably an initial fusion, and that is what happened at Area 1. With the far greater amounts involved at Area 2, fusion will result with the formation of a plasma which will convert the surrounding lunite into almost total energy." No, he was exaggerating, trying to frighten him. Simmons was sure of it. "It couldn't be true." "Assuming that what you say is the case, Professor, what will happen if and when the area detonates?" A lunar globe stood on the desk, the surface a pattern of craters. Bergman rested his finger on the edge of Tycho. "Here is the base." His finger moved to the dark side. "Here was Area 1. Another movement, smaller. Here is Area 2. If what we are sure will happen does..." He hit the globe and sent it rolling. More exaggeration. It had to be. "The area is on the side of the moon opposite to its orbital motion," said Bergman. "It is barely possible that the entire globe will be split, Certainly a large portion of the surface will be vaporized. If the area was on the other side, it might check the orbital motion and send the moon crashing down to Earth. Simmons was being sarcastic, not realizing how he betrayed his ignorance. If suddenly checked, the moon would swing into a closer orbit, breaking apart as it passed Posh's limit to shatter and form Saturn-like rings. You paint a grim picture, Professor. Naturally, you have a solution to the problem. Koenig said, No. But, as I see it, there are only two things we can do. We can evacuate the base. Impossible! Or we can try to disperse the accumulated mass of waste. Then do it! Simmons was eager. There would be time later for argument, and if there was danger, then let Koenig do what he thought best. At worst, it would provide a rope with which to hang him. On the basis of the information I've been given, I authorize you to take whatever steps you think necessary to safeguard the installations and the base. Koenig said, flatly, It's already being done. The Eagles had been converted, the passenger modules stripped and replaced by electromagnets suspended on cables, grabs which could be lowered, lifted at the touch of a control. They watched from main mission, Helena fascinated by the dance of the machines. The mounds had been smashed open, their contents exposed, and the cluster of ships moved in, the grabs lowering, lifting with an attached container, moving up and away to drop it at a far distance. Morrow's voice made a quiet accompaniment to the complex weaving of the vessels as he directed the dispersal. Paul? All smooth as yet, Commander. I've had to pull out a few Eagles for repair. Trouble? Minor collision impact, but they've got the hang of it now. Bergman said quietly, John, if Area 2 goes, it'll happen fast. Those pilots won't stand a chance. I know. Then what do you want me to do? Koenig was harsh. Call off the operation and just sit here waiting? You know better than that, Victor. We have to do what we can. But this I promise. If things look bad, I'll abort the mission. Until then, we work. Work. He had dedicated his life to it, and, watching him, Helena could sense his hidden strain. The conflict he fought with himself, the knowledge that he was risking men's lives, the fear that his orders had sent them to their deaths. He was a commander with a conscience and, perhaps, too much imagination, a combination which gave him humanity, but which tore him inside. Simmons said, Commander, you don't need me. I had better get back to Earth and— No chance, Commissioner. What? I've commandeered your Eagle. Carter's taken it to maintain high-altitude observation. Sorry. Another ship, then. Simmons was nervous. John, I really must get back. You can't. Every other Eagle is committed. Koenig glanced at Sandra. Levels? Heat consistent. Magnetic field fluctuating. We're holding. Bergman's voice was heavy with relief. Thank God for that. We might even make it in time. We're on the edge if my figures are right. Didn't you know? But everything's all right. As yet, yes, but that fluctuation worries me. It could be a natural effect or a warning. If the heat had risen, that would be bad. Very bad. I see. Simmons took a deep breath, controlling himself. However, it looks as if everything is all right now. John, you'll have to let me have a ship. I have to get back and issue a communique. Something to allay anxiety and gain time for us to plan what needs to be done. You see, Koenig snapped, all I can see at this moment, Simmons, is men risking their lives to avert total disaster, and I'm not going to add to that risk by taking out a ship. Forget it. Commander, Sandra cried out. The heat, it's rising. Report. 1,192 Celsius. 1,834. 2,489. 2,993. Paul, abort the mission. Koenig glared at the screen. Hurry, damn you, get those men out of there. Like startled birds, the Eagles dispersed, flying up and away as if from a flame, waste cans falling, others swinging at the ends of cables, still clamped to the electromagnets, forgotten in the urgency of the moment. One fell to smash against a pylon, to shatter, to fall into a reaching gout of blue. Flame which spat high, spreading, catching some of the vessels and burning them like moths, fusing metal and charring flesh and bone. Within seconds, the entire area was an inferno. "Heat still rising," shaken, Sandra continued to report. 3,485, 3,874, 4,284. Magnetic fields intense and fluctuating. The screen flared, turned into an eye-searing patch of brightness, and then abruptly died. "Burnt out," said Bergman. "John, it's happened. Area 2 has—" The shockwave cut him short. Koenig staggered, fell as the entire complex shook to a giant's blow, heard screams, and the crash of falling equipment. Rising, he lunged towards the communicator, falling again before he could reach it, an invisible force slamming him hard against the floor, holding him there, piling a mounting pressure on his limbs, his torso. 10G, he thought. Maybe more, but call it 10. An acceleration of 10 gravities. 320 feet per second. In 1 minute, they would be travelling at a speed of almost 15,000 miles per hour. In 1 hour, as many miles a minute. Add the moon's own orbital velocity, and they would achieve a velocity of close to 2 million miles an hour. That was 7 minutes to Earth, 46 hours to the Sun, half that to the orbit of Mars. Unconsciousness came in a swirl of figures, equations dancing as if alive, spider shapes lined in blazing light, retinal images which blurred and flashed, to blur and fade and die. "Commander, wake up, Commander!" Koenig groaned. His mouth tasted of blood. His eyes ached. His head, every muscle of his body shrieked with pain. "Commander!" It was Carter. He looked pale, blood dried on his mouth, his ears. He sucked in his breath as Koenig opened his eyes. "Thank God. For a minute there I thought you were all dead." "What happened?" "All hell broke loose. I was lucky. I managed to land well away, and then I had to sit it out." The captain rubbed at his nose, looked at the smears on his hand. "The mare Cantabrium is gone. All of the Great Lunar Sea, all the Sora Mountains. I saw it go. The space station too, and the probe, all gone." He added grimly, "A lot of the Eagles too, and their pilots. The poor devils had no chance." Koenig sat upright, wincing. The acceleration pressure had gone. Later he would find out just how long it had lasted and the intensity, but that would have to wait. Area 2 turned into a rocket engine, just as Victor said it might. I saw the plasma forming just before I landed, and I had hell's own job to make it back. God knows where we are heading for now, but one thing's certain. We'll never make it back to Earth. "Help me up." Koenig staggered a little as he rose to his feet. Bergman, breathing heavily, lay to one side. Morrow, as conscious as were most of the others, Helena among them. Simmons was dead. He lay where he had fallen, his head at an ugly angle, a patch of blood bright beneath his temple. The fall had broken his skull, and the acceleration pressure had done the rest. His face, beneath the beard, looked oddly peaceful. "Paul, check the base. All systems to be made fully operational. Top priority." "Commander, men are hurt, dead." "You heard what I said. Ensure our environment." The injured would have to wait a little. The dead wouldn't care. "Kano, get to the computer. Find out where we are in relation to Earth and where we are heading. Full data." Koenig blinked, fighting the darkness which edged his vision, the pain which lacerated his chest each time he breathed. His ears held a high-pitched ringing which dulled the blur of voices reporting from various sections of the base. Morrow's voice rose above the rest. He had been busy, and he almost shouted as a screen came to life beneath his hands. "Commander, I'm getting a long-range video picture. I'm bouncing it off the Mars satellite." a picture which ended all doubt. Earth and the moon were parting, the gap between them already wide and increasing as they watched. The tremendous explosion followed by the rocket thrust of the fissioning material had robbed the planet of its satellite, which was now hurtling into the empty vastness of space. The moon and Alpha Base and all the men and women it contained. Morrow said quietly, "Commander, can we make it back to Earth?" A question Koenig couldn't answer. He lacked the essential data, but if he didn't have it, the computer would. "Kano, ready, Commander. Tell me what it says. Punch it up on the big screen. It affects all of us here." Bleakly, Koenig watched the captions as they appeared. Carter had been right. They could not return to Earth. Too many Eagles had been destroyed. Their velocity was too high, the fuel capacity of the vessels too low. Any ship attempting the journey would die, to drift forever in the void. A coffin, which could contain at the best only a fraction of those in the base. Facts tersely related by the captions on the screen, to be followed by another, the last. Human decision required. His decision, and one he could not avoid. For a moment, Koenig stood, thinking. Then, with an abrupt gesture, closed the circuit which would carry his voice to every part of the base, to every man and woman under his command. "Attention, all sections Alpha. This is Commander Koenig. Our moon has been blasted out of orbit, and we have been cut off from Earth. There is no hope or possibility of return. To try would be to fail, so, in my judgment, we do not try." A pause, while he allowed it to sink in, the harsh reality to be accepted. Then he continued quickly, "But we are not without hope. We have power, environment, and, therefore, the possibility of survival. That is all." Now that Earth was lost to them, they would have to find a new home, a new world which they could call their own. Meta? It was unlikely that their new trajectory would take them to Meta now. But there was still the rest of the universe, and somewhere there might be a new home. To Carter, standing at his side, Koenig said dryly, "Well, Captain, it looks as if you've got your wish to go exploring. Only now, you've got every man and woman in Alpha as your crew."